Want to unlock your hidden potential and live a more authentic life? Carl Jung's powerful framework of individuation offers a roadmap if you dare to take the first step. We'll break down this complex process into 8 manageable stages, illustrated through the captivating story of Elias's journey into the depths of his own psyche. Chapter 1. The Call to the Unknown. Elias, a successful architect in his late 30s, lived a life that appeared meticulously constructed, much like the sleek, modern buildings he designed. He had a loving wife, a comfortable home, and a reputation for being pragmatic and rational. Yet, beneath the surface of his well-ordered existence, a persistent unease gnawed at him. He felt a profound sense of emptiness, a nagging feeling that something vital was missing. His nights were increasingly disturbed by vivid, unsettling dreams. He would often find himself lost in an endless labyrinth, the walls lined with ancient symbols he couldn't decipher. A shadowy figure always lurked in the periphery, its face obscured, its presence both terrifying and strangely familiar. He would wake up in cold sweat, heart pounding, struggling to shake off the lingering feeling of dread. One particular dream stood out. He stood before a towering, ancient oak tree, its branches reaching towards the sky like gnarled fingers. A woman, her face both beautiful and sorrowful, emerged from the trunk. She held out a small, intricately carved wooden box. "The answer lies within," she whispered, her voice echoing in his mind long after he awoke. Elias dismissed the dreams as mere stress-induced anxieties, but their intensity continued to escalate. He tried to rationalize them, attributing them to his demanding work and the pressure he put on himself. However, the dreams persisted, each one more insistent than the last. One evening, while browsing through an antique shop, a small, wooden box caught his eye. It was identical to the one in his dream, intricately carved with symbols that mirrored those he had seen in the labyrinth. A shiver ran down his spine. He felt an irresistible pull towards it, a sense that this was more than just a coincidence. He bought the box, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Back home, he carefully opened the box. Inside, he found a single, tarnished silver key and a small, rolled-up piece of parchment. He unrolled the parchment and saw a single word written in elegant script: "Seek." Elias knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that this was the call he had been waiting for. The call to the unknown, the call to embark on a journey into the depths of his own psyche. He knew that ignoring it would mean condemning himself to a life of quiet desperation, forever trapped in the prison of his own making. This would be the start of unlocking his individuation. Chapter 2. Descent into the Underworld. Elias, compelled by the cryptic message, decided to take a sabbatical from work. He explained it to his wife, Sarah, as a need for a change of scenery, a chance to recharge. He couldn't bring himself to tell her about the dreams, the box, the feeling that he was being drawn into something profound and potentially dangerous. She was worried and concerned for him, but respected his need. He began researching the symbols on the box, delving into ancient mythology and symbolism. He discovered that the labyrinth was a recurring motif in many cultures, representing the journey of self-discovery, the trials and tribulations of life, and the confrontation with one's inner demons. The silver key, he learned, was often associated with unlocking hidden knowledge, with accessing the unconscious mind. The word "seek" seemed to be a clear directive, urging him to confront the unknown, to explore the depths of his own being. Following his instincts, Elias traveled to a remote, secluded region known for its ancient forests and hidden caves. He felt drawn to the wilderness, a sense that the answers he sought lay hidden within the embrace of nature. He felt it was there where he would begin his journey of individuation. He spent his days exploring the forests, hiking through rugged terrain, and meditating in secluded clearings. He kept a journal, meticulously recording his thoughts, feelings, and dreams. The dreams became even more vivid, more intense. The shadowy figure in the labyrinth became clearer, its features slowly emerging from the darkness. He realized that the figure represented his own shadow, the repressed, often negative aspects of his personality that he had long denied. One day, while exploring a hidden cave, Elias stumbled upon an ancient altar. The walls were adorned with carvings that mirrored the symbols on the wooden box. He felt a strange energy emanating from the altar, a sense that he had reached a significant point in his journey. As he stood before the altar, a voice echoed in his mind, "To find yourself, you must first confront your shadow." He knew that he could no longer ignore the dark side of his personality. He had to confront his fears, his insecurities, his repressed desires. He had to descend into the underworld of his own psyche and face the demons that lurked within. He could not fulfill his individuation without doing so. Chapter 3. Confronting the Shadow. Elias understood that confronting his shadow was not a literal battle, but an internal struggle. It was about acknowledging and integrating the aspects of himself that he had long rejected. He began by examining his past, searching for the roots of his repressed emotions. He realized that he had always striven for perfection, driven by a fear of failure and a need for approval. He had suppressed his anger, his vulnerability, his spontaneity, all in the name of maintaining a facade of control and competence. He had been so focused on building a successful career and a perfect life that he had neglected his own emotional needs. He began to experience his shadow in his waking life, not just in his dreams. Moments of uncharacteristic rage would erupt, followed by crippling guilt and self-loathing. He found himself drawn to behaviors that he normally would have condemned, such as impulsive spending and reckless driving. He was afraid of the person he was becoming. His relationship with Sarah suffered. He became distant, irritable, and withdrawn. He accused her of being controlling and judgmental, projecting his own inner critic onto her. He felt guilty for putting her through all of this, but he couldn't stop himself. One night, he had a particularly disturbing dream. He was standing on the edge of a precipice, looking down into a dark abyss. The shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its features now clearly visible. It was a distorted reflection of himself, a grotesque caricature of his own fears and insecurities. The figure spoke, its voice filled with malice. "You cannot escape me," it hissed. "I'm a part of you. I am the darkness that you have tried to deny." Elias felt a surge of terror, but he also felt a flicker of recognition. He realized that the shadow was not an external enemy, but an integral part of himself. It was the embodiment of his repressed emotions, his unacknowledged desires, his unfulfilled potential. He decided to embrace the shadow, to acknowledge its existence, and to understand its message. He began to explore his repressed emotions through journaling, meditation, and therapy. He learned to accept his imperfections, to forgive himself for his mistakes, and to embrace his vulnerability. He was growing, and the path of individuation was becoming clearer. Chapter 4: The Anima's Whisper. As Elias delved deeper into his psyche, he began to encounter another significant archetype, the anima, the unconscious feminine side of his personality. He had always considered himself to be a rational, logical, and pragmatic man, but he realized that he had suppressed his emotions, his intuition, and his creativity. He started to find himself drawn to activities that he had previously dismissed as frivolous or feminine, such as painting, poetry, and music. He began to appreciate the beauty of nature, the power of emotions, and the importance of human connection. The anima manifested in his dreams as a beautiful and mysterious woman who guided him through the labyrinth, offering him comfort, wisdom, and inspiration. She taught him to trust his intuition, to embrace his emotions, and to connect with his inner self. She would tell him what she believed to be the truth, and that Elias needed to listen to her. He began to see the anima in the women he encountered in his daily life. He realized that he had often objectified women, viewing them as either idealized figures or as objects of desire. He learned to appreciate their strengths, their wisdom, and their unique perspectives. His relationship with Sarah began to improve. He started to listen to her more attentively, to empathize with her feelings, and to appreciate her for who she was. He realized that he had been neglecting her emotional needs, and he made a conscious effort to be more present and supportive. He realized he had been doing this because he hadn't allowed himself to truly appreciate the beautiful things in the world. He hadn't grown into his individuation. One day, while meditating in the forest, Elias had a vision. He saw himself standing before the ancient oak tree, the woman from his dream emerging from the trunk. She held out her hand and offered him a single white flower. "This is the flower of compassion," she said. "It represents the ability to understand and empathize with the suffering of others. It is the key to unlocking your heart." Elias accepted the flower, and he felt a surge of love and compassion flowing through his being. He realized that the anima was not just a feminine archetype, but a symbol of his own capacity for empathy, compassion, and connection. Chapter 5: Guidance of the Wise One. Lost and confused on how to navigate the uncharted path of his psyche, Elias searched for direction. In one of his dreams, he met a tribal elder on top of a large mountain, watching over the land. "If it is guidance you need, then it is guidance I shall provide." The next morning, Elias took off from the forest and drove to the tallest mountain he could find. When he reached the top, sitting on a rock was an elderly man, wearing tribal attire. The man called out to Elias, "You seek guidance. I am here to provide it." This man was a Jungian analyst, and he had been expecting Elias. He had heard of Elias's dreams, and the analyst saw a great opportunity. He saw Elias for who he was. He needed guidance to find his individuation. He needed guidance to walk his path of life. The analyst told Elias, "You must look inside yourself. I cannot hold your hand. You must make your own decisions. If you succeed, you will be a better person for it. However, if you fail, you must accept that you tried. Not everything can be perfect, especially when it comes to finding yourself." The analyst told Elias that he must first accept his past, and he must stop ignoring his feelings. He told Elias that he should not feel as if he can't show emotions, because it is a human thing to do. Chapter 6. The Hero's Journey. The analyst told Elias that he must fight for what he believes in. He must conquer his fears and must not be scared. Elias spent many hours in the mountains with the analyst, discussing the philosophy of life. He was able to learn a lot about himself, and he felt as if a weight was lifted from his shoulders. He found individuation through the wisdom of the analyst. Elias went back to his wife and was more open. He told her his dreams and told her how much she meant to him. She accepted him with open arms. Chapter 7. The Self emerges. The integration of the shadow, the embrace of the anima, and the guidance of the wise one led Elias towards the final stage of his journey, the realization of the self. This wasn't about becoming perfect, but about accepting his wholeness, his imperfections, and his unique potential. He returned to his work with a renewed sense of purpose. He no longer strived for perfection, but for authenticity. He designed buildings that were not just aesthetically pleasing, but also functional and sustainable, reflecting his newfound appreciation for nature and human connection. His relationships with his family and friends deepened. He became a more compassionate, empathetic, and supportive partner, father, and friend. He learned to listen to others with an open heart, to offer guidance without judgment, and to accept people for who they were. One day, he returned to the ancient oak tree, the place where his journey had begun. He stood before the tree, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. He felt a sense of peace and contentment that he had never experienced before. He realized that the labyrinth was not just a place of darkness and confusion, but a pathway to self-discovery. The shadows were not just enemies to be feared, but aspects of himself to be embraced. The anima was not just a feminine archetype, but a symbol of his own capacity for love and compassion. As he opened his eyes, he saw a figure standing before him. It was himself, but not the Elias he had been before. This Elias was radiant, filled with light and wisdom. He had individuated. Chapter 8. Synchronicity and Meaning. As Elias continued his life journey, he began to notice synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seemed to affirm his path. He would meet people who offered him exactly the guidance he needed at the precise moment he needed it. He would stumble upon articles or books that provided him with new insights and perspectives. He began to see the interconnectedness of all things, the underlying order and meaning that permeated the universe. One day, he received a letter from a stranger. The letter contained a single sentence: "The world is waiting for your unique gift." He realized that his journey of individuation was not just about personal growth, but about contributing to the collective good. He had a responsibility to share his newfound wisdom and compassion with the world, to use his talents and abilities to make a positive difference. He established a foundation to support young architects who were interested in designing sustainable and socially responsible buildings. He mentored aspiring artists and writers, helping them to find their own voices and to express their creativity. He volunteered his time at a local community center, offering counseling and support to people who were struggling with their own personal challenges. Elias realized that the journey of individuation was not a destination, but a continuous process. There would always be new challenges to face, new shadows to confront, new opportunities to grow. But he knew that he was on the right path, the path of self-discovery, the path of meaning, the path of individuation. He had become a whole and authentic individual, living a life that was aligned with his deepest values and aspirations. He had found his purpose, his meaning, and his place in the world. He was finally free.